welcome back to NovoFlix. Today we're diving into the first 2 episodes of Outlander, Blood of My Blood, the exciting new prequel series on Starz. This historical romance takes us way back to the Scottish Highlands of the early 1400s, where we get to see 2 incredible love stories unfold. So what makes this show special? Well, it's a prequel to the beloved Outlander series, and it focuses on the parents of Jamie Fraser and Claire Beauchamp. We're talking about Ellen MacKenzie and Brian Fraser on one side, and Julia Moriston and Henry Beauchamp on the other. Both couples face their own unique challenges, but let me tell you, their stories are absolutely captivating. Ellen MacKenzie and Brian Fraser give us a classic star-crossed lover situation. After Ellen's father, Red Jacob, who's the laird of the MacKenzie clan, dies unexpectedly, his most beloved daughter faces a really uncertain future. But things get interesting when she meets the charming son of her clan's biggest rival. Meanwhile, Julia and Henry's love story begins during the chaos of the Great War in the 1910s. Their romance seems perfect until a tragic motorcar accident sends them hurtling centuries back in time to 1400 Scotland. And here's the kicker: they get separated in the process and have to find their way back to each other. Spoiler warning if you haven't watched these episodes yet, now's your chance to click away. Dougal and Colin's rivalry after Red Jacob's death. After Red Jacob MacKenzie's unexpected death, the entire MacKenzie clan goes into deep mourning. But honestly, nobody feels this loss more than Ellen, his daughter. Jacob absolutely adored Ellen. He treated her like his most prized heir, even more than his sons. He'd even promised never to use her as a political pawn by forcing her into some unwanted marriage. To really solidify her place in the clan, Jacob had given Ellen their family brooch and plaid items that were traditionally only worn by men. So you can imagine how devastated Ellen is when her father dies, especially since she doesn't even get a say in his funeral arrangements. Now, Jacob's sons Dougal and Colin have their own problems to deal with. Neither of them really mourns their father because, frankly, he never paid much attention to either of them. Jacob thought Dougal was too reckless and lacking in brains, while Colin, who has a smaller frame and walks with a limp, was considered too weak. And here's where things get really complicated. Jacob never even named an heir before his death. This leaves the MacKenzies in a really vulnerable position. Without a named heir, the clan has to vote for either one of the 2 brothers or bring in some outsider. But Dougal and Colin aren't working together here. They're both desperate to prove their worth as the next laird. With no chance of a peaceful resolution, the clan's future hangs in the balance. Ellen and Brian's fateful first meeting. Following Red Jacob's death, the clan prepares for a gathering. Young Murtogh Fitzgibbons Fraser is super excited about attending, but his best friend and cousin Brian, not so much. Brian knows he's walking into enemy territory because he's Lovat's bastard son, and the Mackenzies banished his father years ago. There's serious bad blood between these families. But here's the thing: Lovat actually wants Brian to go to this gathering. Since nobody can connect Brian's face to the Fraser name, Lovat figures his son can blend in and spy on the MacKenzie clan's political situation. So Brian ends up going to the gathering, joining in the feasts and celebrations. But his superior axe-throwing skills catch the wrong kind of attention from some troublemakers, so he ends up hiding out with the horses. And that's where he meets Ellen Beautiful, witty Ellen, who's also seeking refuge from unwanted suitors. They hit it off immediately, and Ellen realizes that Brian's interest in her is actually welcome for once. They decide to meet secretly at the bridge later that evening, away from the crowd. Ellen shows up to their secret rendezvous, but then they discover the terrifying truth: they're from rival clan, MacKenzie and Fraser. But their connection feels too strong to just throw away at the first sign of danger, so they decide to keep seeing each other. Dougal's rash decision dooms his clan. While Ellen's having her secret meeting with Brian, her absence doesn't go unnoticed back at Castle Leach. When her brothers realize she's missing from dinner, her handmaiden Fitz can't help but gossip about how Ellen was last seen with Malcolm Grant. Now, Malcolm Grant is a big deal. He's the son of an important laird with plenty of money and men. His vote is going to be crucial in deciding the MacKenzie clan's future. But Dougal sees Malcolm's wealth as a threat and immediately jumps to conclusions about his intentions with Ellen. Meanwhile, Colin has his own agenda. He knows how important it is to win the Grant's favor, and he also knows his biggest competition is his own brother. So Colin subtly provokes Dougal into making the wrong decision. The younger brother ends up taking his men and attacking Malcolm's retreating envoy. But here's the ironic part: Malcolm has no idea where Ellen even is. Despite being interested in her and walking her back to the castle, he's been respectful of her dismissal. So now Dougal has started a completely unnecessary fight with such an important figure, potentially dooming both his own future and the entire MacKenzie clan's future. That is, until Colm steps in with a solution that conveniently proves his own worth. Julia and Henry find love during war. Episode 2 shifts focus to our other protagonists. In 1917, Henry Beauchamp is serving as a lieutenant in the King's Army during the Great War. While stationed on the Western Front at the Battle of Passchendaele, he writes down his existential thoughts in a letter addressed to no one in particular. By pure chance, this letter ends up on the desk of Julia Moriston, who works at the War Office Postal and Telegraph Censorship Department in London. She reads the soldier's letter on a whim and finds herself deeply moved by his words, so she writes back, hoping for a reply. And that's how these two begin an incredible correspondence, bearing their souls to each other without ever seeing each other's faces. Eventually, they make plans to meet when Henry can get some time off from the army. But a particularly brutal attack at Passchendaele threatens to derail everything when Henry goes radio silent. Fortunately, fate intervenes and Henry manages to make his way to his beloved Julia. Their reunion is passionate and joyful from the start. They agree on a future of marriage and lifelong partnership, and despite the difficult journey, they make it through the war together as a happy family. But then they take a holiday to the Scottish Highlands and everything changes. After getting in a motorcar accident, they end up washed up on a strange shore by a river. When Julia stumbles across a stone circle while trying to find their way back, she gets transported far from her own time. Henry follows soon after. Julia and Henry struggle for survival in the past. Even though both Julia and Henry travel through the stone circle, the slight difference in their transportation costs them dearly. Julia arrives in the 1400s first and tries to study her surroundings, but she ends up getting kidnapped by a group of travelers. By the time Henry reaches the same spot, his wife is long gone. The only evidence she was ever there is a code scribbled on top of a boulder. This forces Henry to head into town and search for Julia by any means necessary. But after a bad encounter at the local tavern, he gets brought to Isaac Grants, the laird of the land. Henry catches Malcolm's attention with a keen observation about an unfaithful advisor. As a result, Henry accidentally lands himself a position as the Grants' advisor and spokesperson. Since this job will take him far and wide, hopefully helping him find Julia, he has no choice but to accept. Meanwhile, Julia faces a much crueler fate. The young woman, who is secretly pregnant, gets kidnapped and sold into the service of Lord Lovat, who's known for his questionable intentions. She has to deal with the reality of being out of her own time, forced to work as a housemaid while fending off advances from her powerful employer. Fortunately, she manages to meet the kind-hearted Brian Fraser. But for now, her situation remains pretty bleak. And that's where we leave off. These first 2 episodes really set up some incredible storylines, and I can't wait to see how these couples navigate their challenges. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Outlander, Blood of My Blood, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. What did you think of these first 2 episodes? Let me know in the comments below.